This is Sean Eads, the CIO for JEA. Welcome to what for us is a virtual press gathering with our chairman of the board, John Baker. Gina Kyle is here and socially distant from me to help through this process to ensure that we do this correctly. And her headset's just died, so technology at its finest.
Sean, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
It looks like everybody else can hear me, Carrie. I'm getting nods. We're having a lot of fun with technology today. For those on the web sphere world, hello.
Carrie, can you hear me?
Carrie just dropped off to get back on.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Sean.
Okay. We can hear you, Gina, if you'd like to go.
Okay. I apologize, everyone. We may have to switch in midstream. I did get a warning from my headset that it's going, but I guess it's still okay for right now. It looks as though we have two members of the media on the line with us right now. WJXT, Kelly Wiley, and Mike Mendenhall from the Daily Record. As long as it stays just these two, Mr. Baker, then they don't have to go through the raising hand piece. I can just call on them and we would start, if it is okay with you, we'll start with Kelly. Kelly, before you get started though, I would say to the two of you that Mr. Baker has agreed to spend no more than 30 minutes with us. So just keep in mind that it looks like we'll have plenty of time as long as it's just the two of you. But let's keep that in mind as you ask your questions. And so Kelly, if you would like to start, please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Baker. My first question is kind of in relation to the last meeting. You made a point to let go of Ms. Dykes during that first meeting of the new board altogether, saying that you didn't want to send the wrong message, whether it was warranted or not. Any other changes in staffing of senior leadership that you plan to make or plan to push for in meetings?
What I believe,
Mr. Baker,
as a board,
Mr. Baker, can you start over again? We had to unmute you.
Okay. Let me try again. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Our role as a board is to appoint the CEO, and it is not to tell him to hire people or fire people. We'll judge the performance of he and his team, and our responsibility is if the team is not performing, then we replace him. We don't tell him who to hire to run.
Thank you. And I noticed, and I'm sure it was a Freudian slip, but you said he, as you were talking about the new CEO that may come in, but that kind of brings into call my next question. One of the board members brought up diversity in searching for new employees, both in rank and file and leadership. What's your viewpoint on that and how you guys will approach that?
Well, it wasn't a Freudian slip because I was talking about Paul to begin with.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the new person. I apologize.
No, but it's apropos of both of them. So it's a good question. You know, I think it's very important to have diversity. We've got a diverse board. We've got a diverse city. And you heard Paul's, I hope, his explanation to our board members about how important he thought diversity was. And I think our board is united in wanting to make sure that we have a diverse slate of candidates. and that we get the very best person we can get.
Thank you, Kelly. Mike Mendenhall, Daily Record.
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, Mr. Baker, thank you for taking the time today. My first questions actually revolve around the headquarters building, the proposed headquarters building. Specifically in the meeting today, it was discussed, reducing the square footage from the building that was approved by the DDRB. I just wanted to see kind of what your thought is as far as do you see that reduction being the target that was discussed, and then what do you see the future of the current JEA headquarters building to be? Do you think do you anticipate it'll be sold? Will it be renovated and reused by JEA? What's your thought there?
If you listen to the presentation, for me to act like I know what's going on in that building would be a joke. I got to get under the covers. We've got to understand what's being proposed. What is the current state of the art as far as office buildings in this new era we live in, and to make sure that we've got something that is comfortable, is efficient. We're not looking to make a statement of having a fancy building. We're here to serve the public and not to live in fancy headquarters. So our goal is to give you something that's resilient, durable, and efficient. As to the old one, I have no clue. I've not been briefed on that at all.
Okay. A second question regarding the headquarters. In the interoffice memo that the former CEO Melissa Dykes gave out, she said that Ryan Companies is considering selling the building shortly after JEA takes occupancy. And Ryan Companies also actually confirmed that to the Daily Record a few days ago. Do you think that JEA would be interested in purchasing that headquarters once it's complete, or would you be satisfied leasing from a different landlord?
I think either way would work. I think you bring up a very interesting idea. If we, the interest rates have never been lower. If you were ever going to buy it, now would be the time. We've got to make sure that we're comfortable with the new lessor, that there's somebody as responsible as Ryan is, but I'm just not familiar with what our contract is and what degree of control we have over that.
Okay.
Hi again. So
Kelly.
I
Kelly.
know that. Oh.
Sorry, Kelly, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I noticed I'm going to give David Barber an opportunity because he is on the line now.
Okay.
David? David, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so now you can hear me. Okay, all right, great. Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Baker, at the last board meeting, you talked about how one of the best things that City Council could do would be to conclude its investigation, do a thorough investigation, but give the ability of JEA to start moving towards the future. I know that there's been some issues with that committee trying to get people to come before the committee and to talk to the committee about the sales process and talking maybe they need subpoenas. So do you have a message for people who have been called before that committee, who are employees, public employees, about what you would like to see them do in terms of being able to cooperate with that committee, get its questions answered so that y'all can get some closure on that and be able to move forward.
Absolutely. It's important to us as a board for that process to move forward. I completely understand the need for it. The FBI is looking at criminal investigations, and if they don't find anything, they just go away, and we never know anything. And so I think City Council wants to make sure that they have good governance over JEA going forward. And I really respect that right. I promise you that if the City Council feels like we are slow walking information to them, that we will make sure that that doesn't happen.
I think some of the issue is employees who aren't directly employed by JEA. Do you have any message for those employees to say, no, come forward, talk to the committee, and let the committee do its work so that JEA can get that wrapped up and be able to move forward?
You know, I'm just not familiar with that. Of course, I would ask them to do that. I just don't know the situation you're talking about. I'm sorry.
The other question, if I could ask about in terms of the search for a new CEO, sounds like Paul McElroy obviously will be coming in as the interim. Sounds like he's not going to choose to apply for the permanent CEO. Didn't really say flatly that was not going to happen. He kind of indicated that it didn't look like it's something that he would be interested in pursuing. But y'all have had a couple of national searches in 2012 and then in 2018 where really recruited nationally and ended up going to the local person. So can you say to people who might be out there that might be possibly interested in coming to JEA that they're absolutely not going to face competition from Paul McElroy for that position if they put their hat in the ring?
I think that's a reasonable request. He may not have sounded clear to you in the meeting about his intentions, but he has been very clear to me. He wants to do this to help. He does not want the job.
Thank you.
Sir, last time we had this meeting, you talked about the senior leadership contracts and specifically the issue of the consultant pay that senior leadership team members would get if they were fired without cause. Tell me where you are on talking to the Office of General Counsel about that even being an enforceable aspect of the contract. Have you learned anything else about that?
OGC is still working on it. We're not ready to come out with anything yet, but it shouldn't be long.
You did mention last time you talked about it that you didn't talk about it much, but you did express some concern with them being in place at all. What's your viewpoint on these senior leadership contracts, on senior leadership team members having a contract at all, since previously they had not?
My view is that they should not have a contract. I understand why the chairman needs one. I mean, not the chairman. The chairman would love a contract, but why the CEO needs a contract. But below that, I don't see any need for it.
Can I ask Mr. Baker, in terms of Plant Vogel, I know it's something you can speak on, but y'all were going to have a shade meeting on that. Are y'all looking to wrap that up and end that so that y'all can go to the rating agencies and say, you know, we're not pursuing that anymore? Or is that something you still think is worth pursuing a long-term legal fight over with MEAG about that contract?
We haven't had our shade meeting, so I really shouldn't comment. I have been briefed by our attorneys who feel like that there are some very strong points on our side that are worthy of pursuing. But you're right. The rating agencies didn't like us suing them at all. And we've just got to balance getting the best deal for the city with getting through the rating agencies. And I think, given the magnitude of Plant Vogel, we've got to work on any settlements that we try to make sure that it's the best thing for the city and that we're not in a hurry to get out of them post haste.
Are there any other questions?
If I can just ask one more, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, David. Just in regards to settlements, have you been briefed by OGC attorneys in regard to former CEO Aaron Zahn, and if he does intend to seek arbitration on his contract? And do you know where that situation stands?
I have not been briefed on that at all. I haven't heard a word.
That's just one question, last question, Gina. There's been some discussion, Mr. Baker, about raising rates. That was something that Aaron Zahn brought up when he was CEO, and also Melissa Dykes brought up as interim CEO in terms of being able to absorb the cost of Vogel. Have you had a chance to look into that? Do you think there's going to be a necessity to increase rates on customers in order to handle Plant Vogel? And if so, when do you think that's something that y'all are going to have to vote on?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've heard the same thing you've heard, that it will require a 10 to 15% rate increase over time. I have not seen the arithmetic. I have not seen what efforts we would make to try to cut costs to avoid that. It's a very serious issue and not something we will take lightly, but we'll have to do what's responsible.
Thank you. All right, you guys. So I am noticing that it's still just the three of you, and we set up to 30 minutes. Unless any of you has a question, an additional question, we'll close it out here. I do want to thank Mr. Baker because, as you know, he's only 2 board meetings in and he's already agreed to speak with you. And so I appreciate both his time and your time. And I would say, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to go ahead and send them over to me, and I will try and do my best to get them answered as quickly as possible. Unless anyone else.
Is it still possible to ask one more question? We don't have.
Yes, go ahead, David. Sure.
It's just a real general question, Mr. Baker. Obviously, you're somebody who, like a lot of us, was watching what happened from the outside looking in over the past year, and now you've, at least, chairman of the board, and you've kind of gotten another look at JEA. Can you kind of give just your take at this point of what you see at JEA in terms of to what extent it's damaged or not damaged by what's happened over the past year? What's your sense of the organization is of a whole, from your perspective, coming in from the outside and now getting to see it from the inside?
That's a wonderful question, because I had a completely different view from the outside than once I got in. There is an esprit de corps in JEA, especially in the rank and file, that they are very, very proud of their company. They're proud of what they do and how well they do it. We've got some big legal expenses we're going to have to pay, and that's going to hurt our bottom line. But JEA is performing really well. It is a good organization. We went through, for example, the sheet that has all the statistics that we look at, and it's as good an example of a well-run business as I've ever seen. I've been really, really pleased and happy to see that. I've talked to Paul McElroy a long time to try to get to know him because I'd met him, but I didn't really know him. And to hear him talk about the spirit of JEA and the spirit of working for the city and what a CEO of a public city-owned utility owes to his customers versus what a corporate CEO owes to his customers is completely night and day. If you talk to a public utility like Duke or Florida Power and Light, their CEO he's interested in making money, and he knows he's got to give great service, but his real interest is his shareholders. Paul McElroy's real interest is the city and the people in this city and the employees that work for him. And it's a really neat dichotomy between the two business models. And I think we are really lucky to have JEA in this city.
Okay. Is that going to do it, everybody? Well, Mr. Baker, again, thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you again for spending the time with our media. You know, they like to get their questions out there, and so we appreciate you taking the time. And if I receive any additional questions from any other members of the media, I'll be sure and pass those along so we can get them answered. So that does answer.
I've got to tell you that Jacksonville's media never shone so brightly as they did in the JEA issue. And I congratulate all of you all. And I hope I'm not going to give you another Pulitzer Prize.
They certainly worked us. That's good, though.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.